pdf.future. Before we begin, I would like to thank the organization for hosting this event virtually. It's very unfortunate that we can't meet up physically this year again, but it is to be expected given these trying times, of course. I hope everyone is doing well, and hopefully we'll get the opportunity to meet up next year at PDF Days 2022. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat that you may have, and I'll make sure to get to your questions at the end of the session. That being said, let's get started. So, this is me. I'm Michael Demey. That's me in the picture on the right there. I have a background in software development, and I have been a developer at iText for about 10 years now. It's been my 10-year anniversary last month. And I've been interested in PDF for as long, partially because it's my job, and secondly because it's an interesting technology. As of today, I am the research manager, which means basically that me and my team are in charge of innovation and standardization within the company. Innovation means that we write prototypes and we write proof of concepts, we look at new technologies on a daily basis. And the second part is standardization. That implies and that entails that we work together with the PDF Association and ISO and all the members there to advance the standards that we support. Luckily for the audience today, we are combining both things, so you get the full gist of my job today. In my spare time, as you can see, I'm a bass player. I love playing classical music, tango music, jazz music. Normally, I would say we could talk music in the lobby afterwards, but well, yeah, you know. Feel free to drop me a message through Twitter or through something else, though, if you want to talk music. I'm always up for that. My other full-time job, as you can see, is being a dad of 2 awesome kids who I hope will be into PDF as much as we all are. That down there is my Twitter handle. Feel free to follow me. I don't tweet very often, but I do respond to DMs. So consider this consent to slide into my DMs. But keep it decent, please. So a very, very short bit on my employer. I work for iText, which is an open source PDF implementation, as there are many, but ours has been around for about 20 plus years. We offer our library on Java and .NET, and it's very cool. Check it out. We have a website, itextpdf.com, or go onto our GitHub, github.com/itext. Feel free to look at our code and to do a pull request or two. That would be awesome. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into it. So a very quick intro or overview of PDF. PDF is a very visual format from the get-go, as you probably know. At its core, you have vector graphics rendering objects to a screen or to some kind of media. Even paper, you could consider PDF to be rendered to paper instead of calling it printing like any normal, sane human being would do. And this can be done in many, many ways. The text you see on screen here, hello PDF Days Online 2021, it could be rendered through many means. The most obvious choice is using textual data, meaning that it's formed using text, basically. And as such, it is selectable, searchable, and any other kind of able that you might think of. But that's no guarantee, to be honest. Like on the other hand, there is nothing preventing the author of the document, aside from a healthy dose of common sense and intellectual capabilities. There's nothing preventing him or her from rendering this text as vector operations, meaning that, for instance, the O that you see here could very well be a circle that's being drawn, not an actual O, to which I would say O. There could be a few valid reasons as to why you want to do that, but please don't. It's merely an example of a point I'm trying to make, and that is that 2 PDF files can be identical twins visually, but underneath the hood, they don't share anything similar. And it goes deeper than that. PDF files can differ structurally. So we talked about a bit of syntax, content stream syntax, which is the rendering of the vector graphics, but they can also be constructed in many different ways on a structural level. For instance, a page is made up of objects called content streams. Any given page in a PDF document can have 1, 2, 3, 20 content streams assigned to it. And these content streams together will define the look of the page through vector operations and any resources that are assigned to the page. Like drawing a line, for instance, positioning text on a certain coordinate, or filling rectangles with any given color. Out of two visually similar pages, one can be made up with one content stream containing 100 operations, while the other page can contain 100 content streams containing one operation each. Again, don't do this. You'll only anger people who need to debug your PDF files and will like you less. So don't do this. Similarly, PDF knows the concept of X-objects, meaning that you can refer to content streams in between air quotations as subroutines that can be called or referenced from other contexts. So there's many ways just for a page on constructing the visual layout. There's too many options in the entire PDF specification to list them all, obviously. Okay. So navigating PDF files is easy. They are awesome pieces of engineering marvel. They are neat data structures. They are always uniformly structured, and no PDF file ever strays from how things should be. Everyone always does how everyone agreed to do it, and nobody ever does their own thing. I'm not sure if what the expiration date is for Borat jokes, but let's assume it's still 2006, 2007, and find this funny. So yeah, in case you missed that, that was sarcasm. Navigation is hard, it's difficult, it's complex. You can have different structures per file, and you will encounter different structures per file. The PDF tree, or yeah, let's call it tree for simplification, can look different even within the same vendor, his output. So any PDF output by iText can look very differently from any other kind of output that iText produces, just by the sheer possibilities that that's all possible within the PDF specification. And the navigation isn't standardized. There's no real reason as to why it hasn't been, and each processor basically does their own thing. They all have their own framework on how to navigate PDF structure. That's not too bad. So first up, it's a demo time. Let's take a look at two vendors, two open source vendors, two of my favorite open source vendors out there. You have Apache PDF Box. It's a low-level toolkit that you can use to navigate and construct PDF files. And you have iText, which is also an open source implementation of the PDF specification used to create and manipulate PDF files as well. The goal of this demo is to navigate PDF files using these implementations and just see how they differ and how they approach file navigation. So wish me luck, demo time. Okay. So for those of you who have never seen a code editor, good luck. For the other people, this is my Java code editor. So I've got two PDF files, keep it simple. I've only got half an hour to explain. So let me open the first one in RUPS, which is our PDF debugging and inspection tool. So this PDF file has one page. It's created by iText. There isn't anything really peculiar about this PDF file. I just wanted to show you that it is a PDF file. Okay, so what are we going to do? So we've got two PDF files, inputs 1 and input 2. Let's start with opening input 1. So for the iText method, what are we going to do? We are going to open the PDF file using a PDF document class. Then we are going to get out the document info because the intention of this test is to get the producer line out. And that is found in the info dictionary. And then on this document info class, we do get the producer line out and we print it to the console. For good measure, we close the PDF document class, obviously. Same thing for PDFbox, very similarly. We open up, we load, and that's what the terminology is for PDFbox. We open up a PD document, and then we get out the document information class, from which we do get the producer line. So very similarly, nothing too groundbreaking, there's no big rift between the two implementations, as you can see. So let me just run both tests, give it a minute to build, to parse it, and then run the tests. So as you can see, both tests pass, which means that there is no exception or error being thrown. Do ignore the red part here. I forgot apparently to configure my logging configuration. So let's ignore it. It's no real value to these tests. So the output is iText 7.1.5 snapshot, which means that this PDF was created using iText 7.1.5. And PDFbox outputs the same thing. So again, the implementations are very, very similar. Going to the second PDF file, input_2, we see that it's a different producer line for PDFbox, so it's 7.1.0, and the same one for the iText implementation. So that is working as it should be. Similar code, the files handle correctly, even with the same code. Nothing too complex there. I've got a second class which will be a bit more complex, as the title says, more complex in introduction. So let's start off with the PDFbox introduction first. Let's start maybe with the second file before going to the first file. So what do? Again, we load the document, we get out page 3. Do note that PDFbox, the pages are zero-based. So page 1 is in PDFbox's implementation, page 0, which is a more programmatic construct. It conforms more to the standards and practices in development. So zero-based, so do keep that in mind. Then you get out the resources from the page. We fetch the font called F1, and then we try to get out the encoding and print that to the screen. The same thing which we try to do in iText. So we do get out the, we load up the file first, then we get the third page. iText chose to approach it as a one-based index, which feels more natural to the end user, but not to the developer. But it's already a first minor difference in APIs that you can see here. And then we get out the resources, we get the font dictionary, then we get out the F1 dictionary and print it to the screen. Running, oh, I ran only iText, but as you can see, it prints identity H. Let me run PDFbox by itself as well. And it also prints identity H. So there are differences between the implementations already, minor differences, but we're not trying to do anything groundbreaking again. We don't have too much time to dive into the actual complex topics. But there are already some minor differences. If we go to the first documents, input_1, and we run it, we run both tests, then we'll find that the tests break. Even though we didn't change the code, the tests break. And that's the simple fact that the indexes are out of bounds. So that means that we try to fetch page 3 or to page 3, and there is no page 3 or 2. So if we would have wanted to write a more fitting test that would encompass all possible things that we could encounter, we would need to write around that. Of course, it's a bit artificial, but it's just to indicate that you cannot write the same code and apply. You cannot write code once and apply it to all your PDF documents. You would need to depend on more generic stuff or very specific code samples for specific PDF files. Okay, so that concludes the first demo. I think it went pretty well, right? Yeah, it ran, it broke where it needed to break, so that's all good. So to summarize, even though the things that we found differently between the two vendors were minor, they could be better across vendors, and there are bigger gaps that you can come across. And within files, within two sets of files, you can even find grievances within your code. So we do need a new standard. That's at least what we said. This is a graphic that's been used quite a lot when talking about standards, and I do find it fitting for every time you talk about new standards. So I think it was a few months ago that during one of the PDF proper TWG meetings, Leonard proposed a standard that he had drafted, PDF path, it's called, which tries to alleviate that problem by providing a structured query language or a structured navigation language. Coincidentally, I have written a POC, a prototype, doing just that a few months prior. So we talked a short bit during the meeting, and I volunteered or got voluntold to draft the first draft. As of yet, I haven't completed the first draft yet due to reasons. But it is on my priority list on the short term. So that is upcoming, and I wanted to highlight at least a few minor ideas and the intention of where we're going with it. Okay, word of caution, I'm going to demo a few things, I'm going to explain a few things, and the following are prototypes that are developed as of yet by a single vendor, being me. I didn't find any other vendor that has an open source or a publicly available implementation of a similar idea. So whatever I show you now doesn't set the rules. That might be for the drafts that we have out, but they could very well be the basis. It's at least a basis for discussion. So the way I see it, you have two approaches. You have a high-level approach and a low-level approach. The high-level approach I would call PDFQL in sequence to SQL or SQL. I'm not trying to start a war here, so I'm going to use both names. So it's a higher level one. I will dive into it a bit later on what that exactly means. We also have a low-level approach, which is the easier one of the two to implement and to discuss. That one is called PDF path in sequence to XPath. So PDF path is navigation PDF tree using XPath-like syntax. So you would have, for instance, an XML document with a few elements in there. You have editions, which has 4 editions per project, basically. And this XPath query here, it goes over the, it tries to find the second edition per project. So the output would be the highlighted editions for both. Okay, so PDF path demo time. Let's go. So I've hidden it a bit, you know, try not to spoil it for you. So PDF path example. So we're going to try to do the same thing as we've done before for the 2 PDF files that we have opened up. And that is, we are going to try to get the producer line out. PDF path is going to be a very strict language. It's going to follow the PDF tree as closely as possible. If not as, it's going to be the PDF tree basically in a single string. So, for instance, if you would have to go to, if you would want to know what the parent tree next key would be, you would write something like, let me just get a window out here. You would write something like struct tree root, because that's what's up here. And then you would write dash parent tree next key, without the typo, of course. And that's going to give you one. Might be a bit of a bad example, so let's dive a bit deeper. So, but the idea is that you follow the um, the tree, the PDF tree, as closely as possible. So for the perusal line, what are we going to do? We are going to open up the PDF document. In this case, I did use an iText PDF document object, but that's not of any interest. The PDF path implementation could very well use any kind of other implementation. It's just that I'm more familiar with the PDF as it's been implemented by iText. So what are we going to do? We are going to get the info dictionary, and we're going to get the producer line, which is here, info, and then producer. So we're going to create a PDF path instance. We're going to query using that object, and then we are going to print it. In this case, it's going to be a PDF string, so we're going to cast it and then get the value out. So let's run get producer. And we get the producer line out quite fast. Actually, it's pretty good. So that's pretty convenient, right? You don't need to write the boilerplate code that you have written here. Of course, it's a very simplistic example. Just imagine that there's 100 lines of code here instead of just the 2 that it was. Where was I again? PDF path. There we go. Similarly, we want to get out the encoding from a font on page 3. So we open up the document, we get the query, so we have the pages object in the catalog with an index 3, could very well be 2. Again, iText is 1-based and not 0-based. So that's why I chose 3. This is up for discussion. Everything is up for discussion. Then we go to the resources dictionary, we get font, we get F1 out, and then we get the encoding out. Then we query that again, and we get a PDF object out. So in this case, because I do want to showcase the error that we had earlier, PDF null will be returned if nothing has been found. So in that case, on the first document, we don't have 3 pages, none found, obviously. Then loading the second document, we would get ident.th as before. So great. Right, this also went great. Demo times are going swell today. So we have some advantages, we have some disadvantages for PDF path. The advantages are that you have cross-vendor implementation. I did use a single implementation here, which is based on iText, but again, it could very well have been a PDF box implementation or any other closed proprietary or other open source implementations. So you can basically copy paste your queries across implementations. One PDF path query could and should work everywhere. One query to rule them all, right? It reduces boilerplate code. You might have seen it in the second example, which reduced the output by a lot. The query is still PDF file specific, as you mentioned, as you saw in the second document, where querying the third page on the first one through an error. Then we have PDFQL query language. It works on a higher level than PDF path, and it uses high-level objects as shortcuts, entry points. So you would have an entry point pages, you would have an entry point forms. There would be a structure entry point from which you can navigate easily. And the only thing that is different from the other stuff is that there are more high-level features included. So you don't need to know that there is, for instance, on a page object, there is a resources dictionary. All you need to know is that pages have fonts, and from that you can query. So let's dive right into it. Let's dive into the demo time. Here we go. Let's go to PDFQL. So again, to documents, we get the producer out. Very simple. Produce lines is a bit of an easy example. So different syntax, again, just to highlight it a bit. And then very similar code. Let's just run it, and it outputs the same thing. This right here is a bit more simple. So you would get pages 3, then just immediately query the fonts and get the encoding out. Instead of going through the resources, then to F1 first and then the encoding. So you would query this, and then it will come out as before. In this case, not found. If you go back to the first one, okay, NFTH. So this may seem a bit trivial because the examples are trivial. I only have about half an hour to explain the concepts on this, but you can do more elaborate stuff on this. Feel free to grab me after the talk online, and we can discuss a bit what kind of ideas that we have. So going back to the presentation, so you have some disadvantages, some advantages. The advantages are portability. You have across vendors and across PDF files, although the examples that I've shown that don't really highlight that. You have portability across that. There's a higher level to it. There's more abstraction to it. The abstraction also leads to having a requirement of having less knowledge of PDF specification. That is, you don't need to know the inner specifics of the PDF specification to be able to navigate the PDF files. You need to have some kind of notion of how documents work, but not really specific to PDFs. The disadvantage, in my opinion, here is that it's less focused than when compared to PDF-Path, which has a more direct to PDF, basically, kind of approach. So, to summarize, navigating PDF files is hard. It's hard in the sense that it's hard to do uniformly. So it's hard to do the same thing across documents. It's hard to do the same thing across vendors. And we are trying to bring two solutions to the table, PDF-Path and PDFQL. I'm working on the drafts for that, which I should present to the, or at least email to the mailing list for the PDF proper TWG. If you're not subscribed to that mailing list, you can go to the PDF Association website and subscribe yourself there. I do hope I brought across the ideas pretty well. If you have any questions, feel free to speak now or slide into my DMs on Twitter. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you next year in person. Thank you. I was Michael.
Okay, now it's time to get your questions for Michael. So Michael, let's get you to turn on your camera. There you are.
Hi, everyone.
Excellent, excellent, great. Let's see here. So first thing I should say is that you can download the slides Michael was presenting from the handouts panel in the GoToWebinar control panel. Okay, Michael, first question we have here. Can we see some more complex queries?
Yeah, sure. Let me just show my screen real quick. Okay. So I chose some very simple examples before because, well, we only had half an hour, of course. So trying to bring across a more complex query would be a bit wasteful of the time. So let me just copy paste this example real quick. And let's, for instance, try to get from the document that had 3 pages to get all the media boxes from every page. So let me just do this real quick. There is a selector that you can use, for instance, instead of the 3, which is an index, you can choose to have the asterisk, which is, of course, yeah, give me all. So it's going to loop over all pages, and then it's going to return the media box. So if we then run this, for instance, give it some time, it's going to give me a PDF class cost exception, which is great. Oh yeah. Let me, because it returns a it returns an array and not the name field. Let me just debug so that we can see the innards. I'm not going to try and deconstruct the array right now. So as you can see here, the query result is going to be a list of 3. It's going to contain, for instance, 3 media boxes. Of course, this is the default A4 rectangle size. So it's going to return all the media boxes applied to it, which may, of course, again, may seem a bit trivial because media boxes aren't that valuable information, but I wanted to highlight that you can select across pages multiple things.
Okay. Great. Next question, what are the specifications for the 2 query languages you discussed?
Well, that's the whole idea behind it. So the specifications haven't finished up yet. So it's still in the early drafting stage. So the first drafts are still to be written and to be proposed, or at least emailed to the PDF proper TWG, to PDF Association. So as of yet, there is no official specification yet. So it's still very much in the discussion phase, basically.
Okay. So then that probably influences your answer to this question, which is how do they support the custom or proprietary keys and dictionaries that are not formally in the PDF specification?
That is something that I haven't thought of yet. That's a very good question. I would, seeing how the PDF specification allows for that, I would also imagine that PDFQL and PDFpath should allow for it as well. Like for instance, media box, if you would have any custom key under pages for any kind of reason whatsoever, if you would have a Michael box, for instance, I would imagine that would return a similar array to what we saw before, depending on, of course, what kind of thing that Michael box is within PDF. But it should allow for that because PDF allows for it as well.
So that's a good intro to this question, which is, can PDFQL access every PDF dictionary and array?
PDFQL would be a bit harder because PDFQL operates on a higher level, more abstract level. So it could be that certain stuff that is like just an intermediary to get to certain information would get lost in the abstraction, while PDFpath, which leans very much closer to the actual PDF tree as it's described in the PDF specification, would allow you to access any kind of object, basically. I'm thinking about more specifically like structured tree information. PDFQL would have an abstract layer between them where you would just select on roles, whereas PDFpath you would have to navigate the entire structured tree structure, basically, to get to specific points. So it's more about abstraction and convenience for PDFQL. But yeah, PDFpath will provide whatever information you would need from the PDF file.
Mm-hmm. Is the query case sensitive?
As it's implemented right now, I don't think it is. I would need to look at the innards, but I think I do normalization on the input for PDFQL at least. PDF path, which is case sensitive, I think. So I think it's also in the example that I've shown before. Pages has a proper capitalization going on, whereas QL is the more abstract one, which doesn't have to lean as close to the capitalization that the specification prescribes.
So here's a speculation. Could the output of iText, PDFpath, and PDFQL queries then be saved as simple text files, such as XML, and thus possible to handle in a Unix shell, such as Bash or in Git for version control?
Yes, it could. It would require some work on your end. The implementation as it is right now just returns the basic PDF objects that iText has as its internal model, as does any PDF processor or library, right? So you would need to convert those to whatever file format, like JSON, XML, or a database record that you would want to have. But yes, that's very, very much possible.
So the same questioner has an interesting follow-up, which is, would it be possible to run these tools in reverse to produce a new PDF from a modified PDF path / PDFQL query?
That would be very hard, I think, because the query result in itself would just be a single object or an array or a selection of objects. It's not going to be, it's never going to be an entire PDF document that you're going to get up as a result from any kind of query that you run. So unless you find a way to, you would need to tag all the results as having the same ID or coming from the same document at least to be able to reconstruct a PDF file from query results, I believe.
Right.
I haven't thought about that, so I'm freewheeling this answer.
Sure. Are you looking to target incremental updates?
Good question. I think initially the initial stance that I took was to just tackle the last version, because the simple reason is that iText considers the last version to be the true version, let's say. So any kind of object that has been overwritten by a later revision is ignored, basically. But it should be feasible, and I think that's one of the challenges that PDFpath and PDFQL have, is to how to deal with incremental updates. But I haven't considered that yet at this stage.
So last question I think we have time for here. So would PDFQL therefore need to change when PDF adds new features? This is sort of a follow-up to a previous question about custom and proprietary keys.
Mm-hmm. It would need to change in the sense that it would need to be expanded as well, right?
Yep.
PDFpath can be, you can write PDFpath quite leanly, meaning that you can adhere to the PDF specification quite closely, and as PDF specification changes, so PDFpath in itself doesn't need to change because you're just linking to the PDF specification. Whereas PDFpath, which has the abstraction layer to it, you would need to at least write in some provisions for that to accommodate for the abstraction to take place at least.